I found myself in the physician's reception area when my cell phone buzzed to life. My one and only child, Angela, was calling. Something felt off in her tone. It was distant, almost frigid, as she announced, "Mother, Edward and I are departing for Europe first thing tomorrow. I've already liquidated your coastal property and your vehicle. The funds were necessary. Goodbye." The line went dead immediately. 45 years of nurturing her, giving up everything for her welfare, and she cast me aside like refuse. Yet I exhaled slowly and allowed myself a knowing smile, for there existed knowledge my beloved child didn't possess. My name is Antonia Brooks. I've lived 71 years on this earth. And before that phone call, I believed I truly understood who my daughter was. 6 months had passed since I became a widow. My life partner, Robert, had succumbed to cardiac arrest during our morning meal, just as we'd shared breakfast together for 45 consecutive years. That particular morning, he'd prepared my usual coffee with cream alongside buttered toast. Like clockwork, he'd pressed his lips to my forehead and murmured, "Good morning, my love." Those final words would echo in my memory forever. Following his passing, Angela had appeared more frequently in my daily existence, or so my perception told me. She arrived for visits 3 times weekly. She assisted with the memorial service preparations and kept me company during grocery shopping trips. She even recommended I schedule a physician's appointment for a comprehensive examination. "Mother, you must prioritize your well-being now that you're living independently," she'd express with that expression I interpreted as affection. Now I recognized it, masked self-interest. The coastal residence had served as our haven for many years. Robert and I acquired it during Angela's 15th year through tremendous effort and personal sacrifice. Each summer season found us there, creating cherished moments, marking birthdays and holiday celebrations. Angela would introduce her romantic partners and eventually her spouse, Edward. I would prepare meals for the entire group, maintain cleanliness, and handle the washing. This constituted our household custom. Never did I imagine she'd reduce it to mere monetary value. And that vehicle, Robert's beloved Ford pickup that he maintained like a treasured possession. Every Sunday without fail, he'd wash it thoroughly, perform oil changes religiously, and consistently position it beneath the tree's protective shade. Angela understood the significance that truck held for me. It represented the final tangible connection to him. His distinctive scent still permeated the upholstery. When the call disconnected, I remained seated on that rigid emerald-colored plastic seat, encircled by other unwell individuals. And for the initial time in months, tears didn't come. An unexpected sensation occurred within me, a tranquility I hadn't experienced since Robert's departure from this world. Because during that instant, I recalled something my mind had completely erased. 3 days prior to his fatal attack, Robert had placed a tan-colored envelope in my possession. "Antonia, secure this inside your dresser's compartment. Should anything happen to me, unseal it eventually, but only once you feel emotionally prepared." I'd stored it away without much consideration. Following the memorial service, overwhelmed by sorrow and administrative matters, it simply slipped from my consciousness. Yet there it waited, residing in my home. The medical assistant summoned me into the examination area. The physician conducted his assessment and declared my health satisfactory for someone of my years, recommending additional rest and improved nutrition. I acknowledged his advice with a nod and smile, though my thoughts wandered elsewhere. My mind fixated on that envelope, on the iciness in Angela's tone, and on how Edward likely orchestrated everything behind the scenes. He'd never held favorable feelings toward me. To him, I was merely an inconvenience. I departed the medical facility and proceeded at a leisurely pace toward the transit stop. My vehicle no longer existed in my possession, courtesy of Angela's actions. Yet while I waited, I couldn't suppress a smile. Something almost poetic existed within this entire situation. My child assumed she'd stripped me of everything. What? Escaped her awareness was that Robert, my cherished Robert, had consistently been someone who prepared for contingencies. The transit vehicle arrived and I selected a window seat. I observed the urban landscape passing by, residential structures, commercial establishments, individuals rushing in all directions, each carrying their personal tragedies, their private mysteries. I possessed my own secrets as well, and I stood on the threshold of discovering them. Upon reaching my residence, I proceeded directly to my sleeping quarters. I accessed the dresser compartment, and there sat the tan envelope precisely where I'd placed it. My hands experienced slight tremors as I retrieved it. Multiple documents resided within. I could sense their presence. Robert had inscribed my name across the front in his characteristic precise penmanship. I positioned myself on the bed we'd occupied together throughout our marriage and drew a deep breath. Darkness was beginning to settle outside, and familiar shadows were filling the house, shadows that no longer triggered fear within me. I unsealed the envelope with deliberate care, as though unwrapping a celebratory gift. The contents I discovered would transform everything. The envelope's contents stole my breath. Legal documentation, property titles, financial institution certificates, and a personally written letter from Robert materialized before me. My vision blurred with moisture as I absorbed his recognizable script. My beloved Antonia, should you be reading these words, it signifies my absence from your life. Please excuse my silence regarding these matters during my lifetime, but protection from anxieties motivated my discretion. Throughout our years together, I invested our accumulated funds into real estate and commercial ventures. The coastal house isn't our sole holding. 6 additional properties exist, including the residential complex where Angela and Edward maintain their dwelling. Additionally, we possess equity in 3 corporations worth amounts beyond your imagination. You possess wealth, my darling. Wealth always surrounded you, but now documentation confirms it. My hands experienced tremors as I examined the documentation. Property titles for residences across various urban neighborhoods appeared, along with a metropolitan condominium, a modest coastal lodging establishment, and indeed the 20-story residential structure housing my daughter. Robert had maintained silent ownership for a decade, but had registered everything under a corporate entity unknown to me. According to the paperwork, I stood as that corporation's exclusive beneficiary. Financial statements for accounts I'd never known existed also appeared, displaying figures that seemed implausible. Robert had worked as a transit vehicle operator for 4 decades, but apparently he'd also functioned as an exceptionally astute investor. Every cent we preserved, every sacrifice we accepted, he'd multiplied silently, and I'd remained completely unaware. Within the letter, Robert clarified that he'd maintained complete secrecy because he preferred I remain unburdened by financial concerns and didn't want Angela aware of our actual monetary circumstances. You understand our daughter, Antonia. Should she gain knowledge of such substantial resources, her demeanor would shift. I desire her affection for our authentic selves, not our material holdings. Such profound irony. Our daughter had departed believing we possessed nothing when reality held everything. Sleep evaded me that evening. I traversed the residence, making physical contact with aged furnishings and decorative objects Angela had consistently criticized as antiquated. I studied family photographs adorning the walls, particularly the image capturing her at 5 years old, positioned on Robert's lap, radiating joy. Where had that precious young child vanished? When had transformation occurred, rendering her so detached, so manipulative? Early the following morning, the telephone sounded. Angela was calling again. Her vocal tone had altered, softer, but I'd already developed wariness toward such tonal shifts. Mother, how are you managing? I wanted to inform you we've already processed the financial transfer from the house and vehicle. We placed your portion into your account. The amount isn't substantial, but it'll sustain you for several months while you search for something more compact. My portion? I inquired, maintaining vocal composure. Certainly, Mother. Obviously, we wouldn't abandon you with nothing. We allocated 30% to you. That seems equitable, correct? We require the funds for our European investment. Edward has discovered an incredible commercial opportunity overseas. 30% of my personal belongings. Such generosity. I understand, dear. And your departure occurs when? This afternoon. Our luggage stands ready. We'll remain absent at least 6 months. Perhaps extended duration if commercial success materializes. But don't harbor concerns, Mother. Upon our return, we'll assist you in locating a modest apartment. Something appropriate for your requirements. Appropriate for my requirements. As though she comprehended my actual needs. Very well, Angela. Travel safely. Oh, Mother, I knew you'd demonstrate understanding. You've consistently been so accommodating. We hold such deep affection for you. The connection terminated. I stood holding the telephone device, and for the initial time in months, genuine laughter emerged. I laughed as I hadn't since Robert's passing. The circumstances were so preposterous they achieved comedy. My daughter had robbed me, expelled me from my personal residence, addressed me with insufferable condescension, and all to finance a European excursion that would likely prove disastrous. Yet what troubled me most profoundly wasn't monetary. It was the effortlessness with which she'd discarded me. 45 years of existence dedicated to her welfare, of sacrifice, of limitless affection, and she'd erased me from her existence with a 2-minute telephone conversation. That inflicted the genuine pain. I verified my financial account electronically. Confirmation appeared. They deposited an amount probably seeming generous from their perspective, but constituting mockery from mine. They'd liquidated the coastal house for substantially less than its worth, likely due to requiring rapid cash, and they'd sold Robert's truck for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window vantage point, I observed Angela and Edward loading their luggage into a taxi. He carried 2 enormous suitcases. She possessed a very expensive-looking carry-on bag. I watched them share laughter, exchange kisses, and discuss plans. They resembled 2 adolescents eager for adventure. Never did they glance toward my window, never offered farewells. When the taxi departed, I seated myself in the kitchen with tea and Robert's documentation spread across the table. Decisions required making. I could contact legal representation, reclaim my properties, and recover everything they'd taken. Yet something suggested a superior approach existed, a more instructional method. I contacted Mr. Peterson, the attorney who'd managed Robert's matters. He'd attended the memorial service, offered condolences, and indicated I should reach out if needs arose. Well, needs had materialized. Mrs. Brooks, hearing from you brings pleasure. How are you managing? I'm well, Mr. Peterson. I require urgent consultation. I've located certain documents from Robert that perplex me. Certainly. You may visit my office tomorrow morning. I'll be present. That evening, for the initial time in months, restful sleep came. Dreams of Robert filled my unconscious hours. He occupied his preferred chair, reviewing the newspaper, just like every morning ritual. Upon seeing me, he smiled and stated, "The time has arrived, my darling. The time for you to advocate for yourself." I awakened with an unusual sensation. It wasn't precisely happiness, but neither was it the melancholy I'd carried for numerous months. It resembled determination. For the initial time following Robert's passing, I possessed clear purpose. I intended to reclaim what belonged to me, but not through Angela's anticipated methods. The following morning, I dressed with exceptional care. I selected my burgundy-hued dress. The one Robert consistently claimed made me appear sophisticated. I arranged my hair and applied modest cosmetics. And observing my reflection, I recognized a woman absent for considerable time, a woman of strength. Mr. Peterson's office occupied a downtown location, an aged yet refined structure featuring marble flooring and expansive windows. He received me with genuine warmth, but when I presented the documents, his expression underwent complete transformation. "Mrs. Brooks, this exceeds my expectations." Robert was extraordinarily intelligent. "Observe, according to these papers, you hold ownership of—" "I'm aware, Mr. Peterson. I've already examined them. What I require is understanding of my legal options. Mr. Peterson clarified that everything maintained proper order, that documentation held legitimacy, and that I stood as rightful owner of all those properties. He also verified something I'd already suspected. The coastal house sale lacked legality because Angela possessed no authority to conduct such a sale. We can retrieve the house immediately, Mrs. Brooks, and we can also initiate legal proceedings against your daughter for fraudulent activity. No, Mr. Peterson, legal proceedings aren't my intention. I desire an alternative approach. I want everything remaining confidential temporarily. Can you provide assistance? He studied me with curiosity, but nodded acknowledgement. Certainly, you are my client. What do you need? I need you to discreetly recover the coastal house. Perform whatever actions necessary to invalidate that fraudulent sale. And I need assistance gaining authentic control of all my properties, especially the structure where my daughter resides. I comprehend. The process will require several weeks, but it's entirely achievable. Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I need complete anonymity. Nobody can know I'm orchestrating this, at least temporarily. Upon departing his office, I felt as though awakening from an extended dream. I traversed the downtown streets, observing people, structures, life continuing normally. But for me, everything had transformed. I possessed a strategy. The subsequent weeks proved the strangest of my existence. Officially, I presented as an impoverished widow abandoned by her daughter. Yet secretly, I functioned as a wealthy woman silently orchestrating asset recovery. Mr. Peterson worked efficiently, and every few days he'd contact me with progress updates on legal proceedings. I decided to maintain residence in my house temporarily. After all, it belonged to me, though Angela likely anticipated my relocation to a single room. Each morning I'd awaken, consume breakfast at the identical table where Robert and I had shared countless years, then embark on neighborhood walks. Neighbors would acknowledge me with that combination of sympathy and curiosity they reserved for recent widows. Aurora, my lifelong neighbor, approached me one afternoon while I tended front garden plants. "Antonia, dear, is it accurate that Angela departed for Europe and left you completely alone?" "Yes, Aurora, she went with Edward. They have commercial plans overseas." "And how will you manage, sweetie? Everyone knows Robert didn't leave substantial funds." "If only you knew," I thought. "Don't concern yourself, Aurora. I'll manage adequately. Do you require anything? I can provide food, assist with grocery shopping." "You're very kind, but I'm managing well, truly." Aurora studied me with that expression I knew thoroughly, the same look I'd received following the memorial service. Compassion blended with slight relief that the tragedy wasn't hers. "Well, you know where to locate me if needs arise." These conversations repeated constantly. The butcher, the baker, the corner store proprietor. Everyone addressed me with that gentle tone reserved for the unfortunate, and I'd nod, smile, and express gratitude for their concern. Yet internally, part of me enjoyed this performance. It resembled living a dual existence. Mr. Peterson contacted me one Wednesday morning. "Mrs. Brooks, I have positive news. I successfully invalidated the coastal house sale. The purchasers were unaware the sale was fraudulent, so they received their funds returned without complications. The house is yours again." "Excellent, Mr. Peterson. And the structure where Angela resides? That one presents more complexity. Technically, you've consistently been the owner through the corporation, but we need to implement some administrative modifications so that you have direct control. That should require another 2 weeks. Perfect. Keep me informed." After disconnecting, I seated myself in the kitchen with my coffee and contemplated Angela. She'd been in Europe for 3 weeks, and I hadn't received any communication from her. Not a telephone call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I had ceased to exist the moment she obtained the funds she needed, but I knew that would change soon. I decided to visit the coastal house. I took the transit route to the coast, the same journey Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The house appeared exactly as I remembered it, modest, painted cream-colored, with a porch overlooking the ocean. The new owners had placed some potted plants on the steps, but otherwise, everything remained identical. I sat on the curb across the street and observed it for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons when Angela was little, running on the beach and building sand castles. Robert grilling fish on the barbecue while I made salads in the kitchen. Angela bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Edward. All those joyful moments that she had reduced to a simple commercial transaction. An older gentleman emerged from the house and saw me sitting there. He approached me with curiosity. "Are you well, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. I'm simply remembering. I knew the former owners. Yes, I knew them very well. What a shame about what occurred. They told us the elderly lady was very ill and needed to sell quickly. We thought it was a steal, but it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to return the house. Did you know them personally?" "No. We did everything through intermediaries. But they told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't. What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad it really was." I thought, "Well, I'm pleased you didn't lose your funds." "Yes, fortunately, everything worked out well, although now we have to search for another house. We liked this one tremendously." I departed there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that caused pain. It was the effortlessness with which Angela had lied about me. She'd fabricated a story about my illness. She'd used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle requiring removal. That evening, I contacted Mr. Peterson again. "Mr. Peterson, I need assistance with something else. I want to recover Robert's truck as well." "That will be more challenging, Mrs. Brooks. The truck was registered in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that permitted her to sell it." "How is that possible?" "Apparently, you signed that power of attorney several months ago following your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was, the moment Angela had started planning all of this. I vaguely recalled signing certain papers she'd brought to me, telling me they were to facilitate the funeral and inheritance arrangements. I'd been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I comprehend, Mr. Peterson. Is there any method to recover it?" "We can attempt, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion. Let's proceed. I want to recover everything they took from me." Over the next few weeks, I developed an unusual routine. In the mornings, I was the impoverished widow everyone knew. I'd go out to purchase necessities, converse with neighbors, and maintain appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman. I'd study Robert's documents, converse with Mr. Peterson, and plan my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Robert had been much more intelligent than I thought. Every one of his investments had been carefully calculated. The structure where Angela lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered that Edward, Angela's husband, had accumulated substantial debt. He'd taken out loans using the apartment they lived in as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he was going to be in serious trouble. Mr. Peterson contacted me one Friday with important news. "Mrs. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties. I also recovered Robert's truck." The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for modest compensation. "Excellent work. Mr. Peterson, now I need assistance with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction notice." Silence occurred on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Brooks, are you certain you want to proceed with this?" "Completely certain. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to discover how important I truly am." "I comprehend. Do you want me to send it to Europe?" "No. I want you to deliver it to her when she returns. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon." I wasn't mistaken. That same afternoon, Aurora came rushing to my house with fresh neighborhood information. "Antonia, did you know that Edward is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans he took out using the apartment they live in as collateral. But it turns out the apartment isn't his." "Really?" "Yes, and it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she's going to have to return from Europe to sort out this mess." "What a complicated situation." "Yes, and the worst part is apparently Edward lied to her about the business in Europe." "There was no business. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here." "Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I had expected. Angela had trusted Edward, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him. And now she was discovering that he wasn't the person she thought he was. That evening, I sat on the porch with tea and looked at the stars. Robert used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life, watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then he was up there, watching his plan unfold perfectly. "Thank you, my darling," I said to the sky. "Thank you for caring for me even after your departure." The next day, Mr. Peterson contacted me early. "Mrs. Brooks, I have some news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone." "Alone?" "Yes, apparently Edward stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a very significant disagreement." "I see. Did you send the letter?" "I'm going to send it today. She should receive it tomorrow." I disconnected the telephone and stood there in the kitchen, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. After numerous weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Angela was about to discover that her mother was not the defenseless victim she believed. Angela arrived at her apartment on Tuesday evening. I knew this because Aurora, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the following day. "Antonia, your daughter returned last night. I saw her enter with one suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she had been crying the whole flight. Alone, completely alone. And something strange, Antonia. When the doorman asked her for the keys, she didn't have them. She had to ask the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy. Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to return. Or maybe Angela had discovered something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back, and very soon she would receive my small welcome gift. Mr. Peterson contacted me that same afternoon. "Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it personally." "Perfect. How long did we give her?" 30 days to vacate the apartment as per legal standards." "But Mrs. Brooks, are you certain you want to do this? She is your daughter after all." "Mr. Peterson, my daughter expelled me from my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my belongings without asking. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences." "I comprehend. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications." "I have considered them, Mr. Peterson. All of them." That evening, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Angela's face when she read the letter. The initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. She would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she would discover that everything was completely legal. The following day, as if she had been waiting for my call, the telephone rang at 8 in the morning. It was Angela, and her voice sounded desperate. Mother, I need to speak with you urgently." "Good morning, dear. How was Europe?" "Mother, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, correct? Do you know anything about this?" "An eviction notice." "How strange. From whom?" "From a company I've never heard of. It's called, wait, let me locate the letter. Robert Investments, Inc. Do you know this company?" Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. "No, dear. I've never heard that name." "Are you certain the letter is legitimate?" "That's what I want to determine." "Mother, I need assistance. I don't know what to do. Edward abandoned me in Europe. He ran off with another woman, and now I return to this. I don't understand what's happening." There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her, probably when the funds ran out or when he realized that the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Angela. She had sacrificed her family for a worthless man. "I'm so sorry, dear." "Where are you now?" "I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long." "Mother, can I come see you? I need to speak with someone." I don't have anyone else. The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man for whom she had abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. "Of course, dear. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way." I disconnected the telephone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see: an impoverished, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Angela arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how poor she looked. She had lost weight, had deep circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mother," she said, and for a moment I thought she was going to embrace me, but she stopped as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. "Come in, dear." "Do you want some coffee?" "Yes, please." We sat in the kitchen at the same table where I had read Robert's documents weeks ago. Angela looked small in that chair, lost, just like when she was a child, and came to tell me about her school problems. "Mother, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, dear." "No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things and now—" Her voice broke. "Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? He left with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the funds from the sale of your house to finance his adventure." "All the debts?" "Yes, Mother. So many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I discover he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, dear. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mother, I don't know what to do. I don't have funds. I don't have employment. I don't have anywhere to live." She started to cry, real tears of genuine desperation. And for a moment, my maternal heart softened. I wanted to embrace her, console her, tell her everything would be acceptable. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the physician's office. The effortlessness with which she had discarded me. The way she had addressed me, as if I were a burden. "Did you speak with an attorney about the letter?" "I don't have funds for an attorney, Mother. We spent all the funds in Europe. Edward took what little remained when he ran off with that woman." "So, what are you going to do?" "I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find employment and can get a small place to live." There was the question I had been waiting for. After expelling me from my own house, after selling my belongings, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the impoverished widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Of course, "Dear, this will always be your home." Angela looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. "Really, Mother, after everything that happened? You are my daughter, Angela. That will never change." She rose, and this time she embraced me. It was a desperate embrace from someone drowning and clinging to the only thing they can find. I embraced her back as well, but not with the unconditional affection from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace. Strategy. "Thank you, Mother. I promise I'll find employment soon. I won't be a burden. Don't concern yourself about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll examine what your options are." Angela departed that afternoon to collect some belongings from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options. And best of all, she suspected nothing. To her, I was still the impoverished, abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel secure, and believe she had found refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being impoverished by choice and being impoverished by consequence. That evening, I contacted Mr. Peterson. "Mr. Peterson, I need you to do something else for me. Tell me, Mrs. Brooks, I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes, to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That will take time, but it's feasible." "Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I want you to keep this in absolute secrecy. No one can know I am behind this investigation." "Of course, Mrs. Brooks. May I ask what your final plan is?" "My plan, Mr. Peterson, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter, but first, she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom." When I disconnected, I poured myself a glass of the wine Robert had been saving for special occasions. It had been a long time since I'd had a special occasion like this one. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I held all the favorable cards in my hand. Angela relocated into my house the following day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, all that remained of her previous existence. I observed her unpack in her old room, the same one she had occupied during her teenage years, and I could see the humiliation in every one of her movements. She had gone from residing in a luxury condominium to taking refuge in her childhood bedroom. "Mother, I found this in the apartment," she said, showing me a tan envelope. "It was among Edward's belongings. It has your name on it. It was another one of Robert's envelopes." My heart accelerated, but I maintained my composure. "My name? How strange." "Yes, observe." She showed me the envelope. Indeed, it had my name written on it in Robert's handwriting, but this envelope was different from the one I had found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. "Maybe Edward found it among Father's belongings when he died and forgot to give it to me," Angela said. "It's possible. Can I examine it?" I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, "Antonia, if you are reading this after having received the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the Central Bank downtown branch. The number is 247. There is something there that can help you help her, but use it wisely. With eternal affection, Robert." Angela read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Father had a safety deposit box. I had no idea. "I didn't either," I lied. "Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there?" "I don't know, dear. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are." "But Mother, maybe there's something important in there. Documents or, I don't know, maybe something valuable that can help us." The desperation in her voice was palpable. Angela was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation, and I was going to let her cling a little longer before I showed her the complete reality. "Acceptable," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That evening, Angela and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She had cooked, trying to be useful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about what had occurred in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. "Edward lied about everything, Mother. Not just the business, but the debts as well. I thought he only owed a small amount of funds, but it turns out he owes over $100,000. And the worst part is he used my name for some of the loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him some documents to handle the banking for our joint account. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any method to prove you didn't know?" "I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say that since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Edward is now. He just disappeared. His phone is disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's as if he vanished. Perfect." Edward had fled like the coward he had always been, leaving Angela to face the consequences of her actions alone. In a way, he had done me a favor. Now my daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when she abandoned me. Betrayal by someone she had completely trusted. "I'm so sorry, dear. I didn't know things were so severe. I didn't either, Mother. I thought Edward loved me, that we were going to build something together. But it turns out I was just an easy way for him to obtain funds and documents." Angela started to cry again. How could I have been so foolish? How did I not realize who he really was? It was tempting to tell her that I had seen the signs from the beginning, that I had tried to warn her that Edward never seemed trustworthy. But that would have broken my facade as a compassionate and vulnerable mother. Affection can be blinding sometimes, dear. Don't blame yourself. But Mother, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours as well. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your truck, your belongings, and all to give to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. Now we're 2 impoverished women trying to survive because of me. It's in the past, Angela. Will be acceptable. No, it's not. Now we're both in difficulty because of my mistakes. You lost everything Father left you, and I lost my marriage and my future. We're 2 impoverished women trying to survive. If she only knew. I thought that at this very moment, I had more funds than she could possibly imagine. That I was the owner of the structure where she lived. That I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The following day, we went to the bank. Angela was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act as a confused widow who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes. verified my identification, and opened box number 247. Inside were jewels, many jewels. Rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Robert's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Angela gasped. "Mother, this must be worth a fortune." "You think so?" "Yes. Observe this emerald and this pearl necklace. Mother, Father saved a treasure here." According to Robert's letter, the jewels were worth approximately $200,000. It was a significant amount, but it was nothing compared to the rest of my assets. It was like finding a few coins under the sofa when you have $1 million in the bank. "What do we do with this, Mother?" "I don't know, dear. They're family memories." "But Mother, we could sell some of the pieces. With this funding, you could get your coastal house back, and I could pay off some of Edward's debts." There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Angela's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems Edward had created. She hadn't learned anything yet. "Are you certain you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Edward's debts?" "What other option do I have, Mother? If I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to foreclose on everything I have. And technically, I don't own anything. Everything was in Edward's name. Think carefully, dear. Once you sell these jewels, you won't be able to recover them." "I know, but what else can I do? I can't get employment with all these legal claims pending. No employer is going to want to hire someone with so many legal problems." We took the jewels to the residence. Angela spread them out on the kitchen table and examined them one by one, calculating which ones she could sell and which she could keep. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. "Mother, I think with what these are worth, I can get about $180,000, she said that afternoon. "It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts." "Are you certain you want to do this?" "I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties." How ironic the situation was. Angela was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying the debts of a man who had abandoned her with funds from jewels that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I spoke with a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral, because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Angela had matured so much in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my belongings without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible, but also more fragile. That evening, while she was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received a call from Mr. Peterson. "Mrs. Brooks, I have a full report on Edward's debts. The situation is worse than I thought." "How much worse?" "He owes over $200,000 to several banks and also has debts with private lenders. What's more concerning is that he used falsified documents with your daughter's signature for some of these loans. That means Angela is legally responsible. It's complicated. If we can prove she didn't know, we might be able to get her out of some of the debts. But it's going to be a long and expensive process." "How expensive?" "For a good attorney specializing in these types of cases, probably $50,000, and there's no guarantee of success." "I comprehend." "And what if she just pays the debts?" "If she has the funds, that would be the fastest solution. But I doubt she has access to that amount." "Mr. Peterson, I want you to prepare all the necessary documents to get my daughter out of these debts, but don't tell her anything yet. You're going to pay, Mrs. Brooks? I'm going to do whatever is necessary to protect my daughter, but this has to be handled in a very specific way." When I disconnected, I found Angela in the living room looking at the jewels with a sad expression. She looked lost, like a child who had broken her favorite toy and didn't know how to repair it. "What are you thinking about, dear?" "About Father, about how disappointed he would be in me if he could see what I did with my life." "Your father loved you very much, Angela. He would comprehend." "No, Mother. He taught me to be responsible, to value family, not to be selfish. And I did the exact opposite. I abandoned my mother for a man who turned out to be a liar. I sold my family's memories for funds. I ruined everything he built. For the first time since she had returned, I heard genuine regret in her voice. It wasn't just lamenting the consequences of her actions, but a true acknowledgement that she had done something morally wrong. People make mistakes, dear. The important thing is to learn from them. But how do I learn from this, Mother? How do I repair the damage I've done? There was the question I had been waiting for. Angela was finally ready to face the truth about her actions and their consequences. But it wasn't yet time to reveal my final card. First, I had to let her hit rock bottom completely. The next few days were crucial for my plan. Angela decided to sell most of the jewels, keeping only the engagement ring Robert had given me and a small necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. I watched her prepare to go to the jewelry stores, research prices, and negotiate with buyers. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to commercial transactions, but it was necessary for her to understand the real weight of her decisions. Mother, I obtained $180,000 for the jewels, she told me one afternoon, counting the bills on the kitchen table. It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you certain you want to do this? I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll foreclose on everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I spoke with a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Angela had matured so much in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my belongings without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible, but also more fragile. That evening, while she was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received another call from Mr. Peterson. Mrs. Brooks, I have important information. We managed to locate Edward. Where is he? In Paris, just as your daughter suspected. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to obtain French residency through a fraudulent marriage with that young woman your daughter mentioned. A fraudulent marriage? Yes. Apparently the girl needs papers and he needs a method to stay in Europe without being deported. But the most important thing is that we found evidence that he deliberately falsified your daughter's documents with the intention of fleeing the country. That means Angela can get out of the debts? With this evidence, yes, we can prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter won't have to pay anything for what Edward did behind her back. It was perfect. I had a method to save Angela from all her debts legally without her suspecting that I had the funds to do it. Mr. Peterson, I want you to start the legal process immediately. Don't tell my daughter anything yet. I want the process to be completely finished before I inform her. I don't want to give her false hope. Understood. This will take about 3 weeks, maybe a month. Perfect. When I disconnected, Angela looked at me with curiosity. Who was that, Mother? A lady who was asking about Mrs. Davis, our neighbor on the corner. She had the wrong number. Lying had become easy. Every day that passed, I felt more comfortable with this dual existence I was leading. On one hand, I was the impoverished, abandoned mother Angela believed me to be. On the other, I was a wealthy woman, silently orchestrating my daughter's salvation and education. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Angela struggle with decisions she never had to make. How to stretch funds for food, how to negotiate with creditors, how to search for employment when your credit history is ruined. It was a cruel but necessary education. Mother, I went to 3 employment interviews today, she told me one evening, coming home with swollen feet and a tired face. 2 of them told me they can't hire me because of the pending legal problems. The third one offered me a part-time position cleaning offices at night. Are you going to take it? I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work at night, so I can keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my daughter, who had lived a comfortable life for over 40 years, preparing to clean offices at night, broke my heart. But it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. Are you certain you can handle so much physical work? I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mother. It's severe enough that you're letting me live here for free. This is your home, Angela. No, Mother. This is your home, and I'm here because of your generosity, but I'm not going to take advantage of it forever. One evening, While Angela was on her first cleaning shift, Aurora came to visit. She sat in the kitchen with me, drinking tea and looking at the family photos on the walls. "Antonia, I have to ask you something. Did you know Angela was going to return in these conditions?" "What do you mean?" "Well, when she departed, she seemed so confident, so arrogant. She spoke about the great life she was going to have in Europe, about how successful Edward was. And now she's back, completely broken, working a cleaning position, living with you again." "Life takes many turns, Aurora." "Yes, but there's something else. I've been observing Angela these days, and she looks different. Not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important." Aurora had always been very perceptive. "What do you think she learned?" "I think she learned the value of the things she had taken for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally." "Maybe. Antonia, can I tell you something? When Angela departed and treated you so severely, many of us thought you would never forgive her. But here you are caring for her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter." "Aurora." "Yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated." "Yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated." If Aurora only knew the complete truth, that I had the power to solve all of Angela's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she would learn the full lesson. "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" "I think you're doing what a good mother would do, but I also think Angela needs to fully comprehend what she lost when she abandoned you." "What do you mean?" "I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in difficulty, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you." Aurora had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Angela to return to me out of desperation. I wanted her to return out of genuine respect and mature affection. And how do you think that can happen? I think it's already happening. I've seen her these past few days, Antonia. The way she speaks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the daughter who gives you orders or treats you like a burden. Now she's a grown woman who is genuinely grateful to have a mother like you. That evening, when Angela returned from her position, I saw her arrive tired, but with a new dignity. She had earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. "How was your first day?" "Difficult, but not as severe as I thought. The other ladies who worked there helped me tremendously. One of them, Mrs. Johnson, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently." "Mrs. Johnson?" "Yes, she's 60 years old and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 3 small children. She says it's not the position she dreamed of, but that it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds like a wise woman. She is. She said something that made me think a lot. She told me there are 2 types of people who end up doing this work. The ones who are there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have." She asked me which group I was in, and what did you tell her? I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a family that loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and that I ruined it all by following a worthless man. What did she say? She laughed and said, "Well, dear, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you one step ahead of most people." Angela poured herself a glass of water and sat with me at the table. "Mother, I want you to know something. These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally comprehend what really matters. It's not funds. It's not residing in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart. Angela, no, let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Father left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again, expecting you to forgive me and care for me. I already forgave you, dear, but I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I prove that I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes. Mr. Peterson contacted me the next morning. Mrs. Brooks, I have excellent information. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your daughter out of all of Edward's debts. It was time. After weeks of watching Angela struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes. The moment had finally arrived to show her that she had never been alone, that she had always had someone quietly watching over her. "Mr. Peterson, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth." Mr. Peterson arranged the meeting for Friday morning at his office. I told Angela that I had made an appointment with an attorney who could help her with her legal problems, but I didn't explain the details. She agreed to come, although she was nervous about the cost of the consultation. "Mother, I don't have funds to pay an attorney. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses." "Don't concern yourself about that now, dear. Let's just hear what he has to say." We arrived at Mr. Peterson's office on time. Angela had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked a little large on her thinner body. She was nervous, wringing her hands, expecting another piece of negative information on her endless list of problems. Mr. Peterson greeted us with his usual professional smile. "Mrs. Brooks." "Miss Brooks, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us," Angela replied. "Although I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated and I probably can't afford high fees." "That's exactly what we're going to discuss," Mr. Peterson said, exchanging a look with me. "But first, I need you to review these documents." Mr. Peterson handed Angela a thick folder. She opened it and began to read, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. "I don't comprehend. These documents say that Edward forged my signature, that there is evidence of fraud, that I am not responsible for the debts." "That's correct. We have been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud. But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation?" "I don't have funds for this." Mr. Peterson looked at me. It was my moment. "Angela, there's something I need to tell you." "What, Mother?" I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. "Your father left me more than you knew. Much more." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Peterson, show her the other documents." Mr. Peterson took out a second folder and handed it to Angela. This time, the documents were the property deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the entire fortune Robert had built in secret. Angela read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally comprehension. "Mother, this says you are the owner of the structure where I lived, yes, and that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments, yes. This means that when I sold the coastal house, it was your house and the sale was fraudulent. I already recovered it." Angela stared at the papers, trying to process the information. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the physician's office." "You knew all this when I returned from Europe asking for help?" "Yes." "You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every evening?" "Yes." There was a long, tense silence. Angela closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. "Why, Mother? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me?" This was the question I had been waiting for weeks. "Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way." "What?" "You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost. The value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just funds you took from me. It was dignity. It was affection. It was trust." Angela started to cry, but they weren't tears of self-pity like the ones she had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. "I abandoned you when you needed me most. Yes. I treated you like garbage. Yes. And you saved me anyway. Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you funds so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself." Mr. Peterson discreetly intervened. "Miss Brooks, your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Edward's debts. She has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems. And the cleaning position I obtained, you can quit if you want," I said. "But I hope you don't." "Why?" "Because that position is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn." Angela wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of a grown woman who respects another woman. Do you forgive me, Mother? I forgave you a long time ago, dear. The question is, can you forgive yourself? I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes, Angela. The important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes. Mr. Peterson left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Angela and I sat in silence, processing everything that had occurred. Mother, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this funding, even if you were really the impoverished widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson. What lesson? That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you. That no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Angela. I know. But I also know that I can never take that affection for granted again. I have to earn it every day with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words. We departed Mr. Peterson's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. We did it, my darling. Our daughter finally comprehended what truly matters. And for the first time since his death, I felt he answered me. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think. Justice had arrived, not as revenge, but as education. Not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we had both gained something much more valuable than funds. We had gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. Did you enjoy my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's connect in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your wonderful support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with affection and respect.